Скорее всего, оппозиция, которая сегодня
Most likely, the opposition, which is now in power, would have come to power democratically by means of elections. And we would have worked with them, as we had been working with the previous government of President Yanukovych. But no, they had to start a coup, with victims, bloody events, a civil war, terrifying the population in the southeast of Ukraine and in Crimea. And all for what? In my opinion, this is being done to justify the existence of NATO. An external enemy is needed, an external threat. Otherwise, what is the purpose of NATO?
When we have the president of Ukraine, Petro Poroshenko, appointing a former NATO Secretary General as a special advisor in Ukraine, many were probably wondering why the Prime Minister of Ukraine, Arseniy Yatsenyuk, announced his resignation out of the Sudan. According to this Ukrainian general, who is saying that Mr. Arseniy Yatsenyuk is a head of Masonic Lodge. This information clearly indicates that Prime Minister Arseniy Yatsenyuk knows exactly what is about to happen in Ukraine. When we have military drills in Ukraine on Russian border, we have the Prime Minister of Ukraine resigning. Is this a coincidence? I don't think so. The armed forces of Ukraine reportedly tested a new tactical ballistic missile. Weapons of this class are capable of delivering various types of warheads, including nuclear.
I called Donald Trump a bright personality, and there's no doubt about how bright a personality he is. Trump said he wants to restore full-fledged relations with Russia. What's bad about that? All of us welcome it, don't you? In any case, we'll work with any president elected by the American people. However, the Americans keep lecturing others on democracy. But are their own elections really that democratic? There were two cases when a US president was elected by a majority of delegates who represented a minority of the population. Is that democracy?
When we have something like 80% of humanity standing behind Putin's back, and if necessary, they will provide full support to Putin, because if Putin defeated in this fight, we will have one world government. How Putin can destroy Illuminati? The answer is very simple. Putin has to suspend few sections in the Russian constitution for a year or two. So what would happen if Putin would suspend those key sections in the Russian constitution? First thing is that the Russian central bank would be under control of Putin, and the interest rate could be cut to zero from the current interest rate, which is 11%. Second thing is that all Russian businesses would be nationalized. All the money that is leaving Russia would stay in Russia. But on the other hand, how this would affect Illuminati? My new video is about 4 wild cards of Illuminati to destroy Russia and China. As always, check the link below this video. In this video, we are going to look at key information related to the ongoing war between Putin and Illuminati. In this war, only one side will win. After watching this video, you will be able to understand why Russia, before 1991, had almost 21% of world's GDP. Just look at this graph, how Russia's GDP collapsed. And when Putin came to power, the GDP of Russia started growing again. Let me ask you, why there are so many poor people who live in Russia? Considering the fact that Russia has more than 30% of total world's natural resources. Basically, Russia has everything as presented on this chart. The evidence is all around us that old global financial system is collapsing and it never be the same again. The everyday life in the United States and Europe will be unrecognizable within few months, as the financial power is shifting towards Russia and China. I want you guys to know a number of key facts that are very important in understanding the real situation in this world, especially if you live in the United States or UK. Most likely you never heard this information before. This is Yevgeny Fedorov, Russian Duma deputy, the leader of the National Liberation Movement in Russia. Yevgeny Fedorov, he works in Russian Duma, like Russian White House. Yevgeny has been working for Russian Duma for the last 25 years. Yevgeny Fedorov is a real insider. He works together with Putin against Illuminati. Yevgeny Fedorov was mentioned a number of times on Alex Jones' radio show. Let me share with you some key facts that Yevgeny Fedorov is stating. According to Yevgeny Fedorov, since 1991, Russia is a colony of the United States. Basically, Paul Craig Roberts is saying the same thing. I will prove this fact in a few moments. Yevgeny Fedorov is saying that Russia is paying $1 billion per day to the United States. Yevgeny Fedorov is also saying that Putin does not have real power inside Russian White House. According to Mr. Yevgeny, there are more than 4,400 laws of Russian Federation that are being written outside Russia. Try to guess where Russian law is being written. In Washington. Mr. Yevgeny is also saying that Putin does not control the Russian Central Bank, same as Obama does not control Federal Reserve. Illuminati has the full control of Federal Reserve, ECB, Russian Central Bank, and many other central banks around the world. Mr. Yevgeny is also saying that the vast majority of Russian companies and big businesses do not belong to Russia. Those companies are getting credit from the United States and UK. In fact, the purpose of Russian sanctions was to limit credit to those companies.
Наплевать им на эти санкции, потому что
Has the US been affected by the sanctions? No, they couldn't care less about them. It's Europe that's been affected. And Americans tell their European partners that they have to tolerate them for a while. But why do they have to tolerate them? I don't understand. Well, if that's what they want, then let it be. But why? Maybe Matteo can explain that to me.
Матео объяснит, зачем нам терпеть. Я искренне говорю, честное слово.
When we have investors pulling out their money from UK, when we have China buying up gold and gold vault in the UK, we have investment funds from around the world worth $10 trillion participating in St. Petersburg Economic Forum in Russia. When we have China establishing a new web-based platform for selling goods, we have 150,000 Chinese companies to enter Russian market over the next few years. Surprise, surprise, not very far away from Moscow, we have unprecedented NATO military buildup and military training on land, sea and air. When the war will start against Russia in Ukraine, the offshore money will stop leaving Russia and China. So now it's pretty obvious in any scenario what is going to happen to the value of the US dollar.
Ladies and gentlemen, 2016 will be as bad as the Great Depression.
Now I'm going to prove to you that the vast majority of laws of the Russian Federation are being written outside Russia. This is the constitution of the Russian Federation. It is an unusual constitution, but there are few sections that make the Russian Federation a colony of Illuminati. Let's look at those key sections now in the Constitution of Russian Federation. The most important section in the Russian constitution is section 15. It states that, I quote, "The universally recognized norms of international law, international treaties, and international agreements of the Russian Federation must be a component part of its legal system." Do you get this information? In simple terms, it says that international law, international treaties, and international agreements of the Russian Federation must be a component part of Russia's legal system. Basically, it says international law dictates the rules for the Russian Federation. Simple as that. Listen to this now. If an international treaty or an international agreement of the Russian Federation fixes other rules than those established by law, the rules of the international agreement must be applied. In simple terms, that means if Putin tries to bring new law in Russian White House, this section in Russian constitution can prohibit Putin from creating any new law in Russia. That means only Washington has real power to create new laws for Russia. A research reports that around 1.3 trillion US dollars have been sent offshore from Russia by the end of 2014. A research reports that around 1.3 trillion US dollars have been sent offshore from Russia. These findings also show that over 12 trillion US dollars have been sent offshore out of the emerging economies that include China, Nigeria, Angola, as well as Brazil and Argentina. You just need to understand what is really going on here. Offshores is a system that allows organizations like IMF to extract all the wealth and resources from countries like Russia and China. This old control system is going to be dead very soon. As I mentioned before in this video, Putin has to suspend only one section in the Russian constitution, and this old control system will collapse like a house of cards. This is the reason why we have all around the world all kinds of military drills, military training, FEMA drills, you name it. It is not a secret that offshores, it all has to do with the lending of money to big companies. For instance, the current interest rate set by Russian Central Bank is 11%, and the Federal Reserve interest rate at this moment is 0.5%. Now, let me ask you, if you had a company, or even better, if you want to get a loan on your new car, would you want to borrow money for 11%, or instead you would want to borrow money at 0.5% interest rate? All those oligarchs who can afford to buy soccer clubs in UK, or those oligarchs who can afford to buy NBA clubs in the USA, do you think they have anything to do with these 13.3 trillion offshores? The answer is very simple, but this topic needs to be discussed in greater detail in my new video. Chinese authorities are seeking to strengthen their collaboration with Western countries to recover ill-gotten assets which have been sent offshore. You see, if Russia and China will investigate and nationalize those companies, that means the end to 13.3 trillion US dollars offshores going to Federal Reserve.